The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Well, hello, folks, and thank you for joining us on this COVID-19 isolation episode of our community. We're glad you can join us. I'm your host, Kevin, and I'm joined with Mr. Mayor Jim Parsons. Jim, thanks for coming on.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. Wish it was in, different circumstances, of course, in the studio, but hey, we make do.
Absolutely. We are certainly experiencing totally new times, I think, for all of us, and this is something that we're learning to adapt to. I think hopefully this doesn't become the new norm. We certainly can go back to the way that things were. But Jim, I want you to talk a little bit about who you are, more as a resident, Jim, than as the mayor, just to kind of give a little bit of an insight as who Jim Parsons is, as opposed to Mayor Parsons.
Well, I'm born and bred here. I grew up on the west side. Dad's from Curling, mom's from the west side. Grew up in the Country Road area, and I got married to my wife is from here as well. She was a town site though, so it was a mixed marriage. But now we have two small kids, Rosie 7 and Declan who's 5. And we live up in the Glenhaven area. So I've been here my whole life and went away for a while to go to school and worked in St. John's for a number of years in the IT sector. And then we moved back in 2003, and we've been here ever since.
Wow. So when you say you went away for school, where was it you went to school, and what was it you studied?
Oh, I studied evolutionary biology. Very different, I know, than the IT world or politics at Harvard in Boston or Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Wow, excellent! And that was, what is that? Is that 4 years, 5?
Yeah, just did my undergraduate degree there.
Yeah, wow, excellent. And so you spent some time in Boston, going to university, and then you came back to Newfoundland, was it?
Yeah, I had some plans to. At the time, it was wrapping up to the Y2K times, and I was considering a job to go back to the States. I had been involved a little bit in the early days of the web, of course. Back then, when I was in school, web browsers and things were brand new. So Mosaic and Netscape, and all those things. So I was interested in that kind of thing, but of course. You go to visit your girlfriend and in St. John's, and the rest is history. I found some work with a startup company in St. John's, and they were just sort of up and coming, and it went from there. And happy to say, that turned into getting married, and we lived out there in the East End for a while, but. Both my wife and I, of course, enjoy our weather here on the West Coast a lot better than the weather in the East End of St. John's. So,
yeah.
So we picked up.
Well, especially this year.
Listen, every year. I'll take our snow, but our bright winter days, I think, make life a lot more enjoyable in winter. And that was a big thing for us, and also the social aspect. My wife, like I said, is from here as well, and we have a lot of connections here, and family connections and friends. And once we came home, we knew it was the spot we had to be.
Right. And so you spent some time in St. John's. How long before you realized you wanted to come back to the West Coast, as we call it, the best coast?
I was out there about 6 years. We did, we had again set up our own house there, bought a house, and we were pretty settled. But then an opportunity came. I was traveling a lot for work, and it's not what I liked. I didn't find that as enjoyable as I'd hoped. And my wife had an opportunity to go work at Grenfell. And so she's currently the registrar up at Grenfell campus, Memorial University. And and we really love Corner Brook, and it's I've always said it's the best place in the world. And now that we have children, I think especially we realize how lucky we are to have things like such a safe environment. We have relatively good access for things like travel and that. We have excellent recreational facilities and opportunities for our children. Our arts community is so rich here. We punch well above our weight. So it really sort of, and then the outdoor aspect, being able to get out in whatever season really was a real draw. I mean, I like to hunt and fish and do all those things as well. So, there's no place like home, and there's no place really like Corner Brook, quite frankly. We do have the best of it in a lot of ways. So we're thrilled to be here, and again, I think in terms of a place to raise kids, I can't think of a better place. I mean, they're so safe, and they have so much opportunity here. Great educational institutions here. Just so much for them to do and see and experience the world. I mean, we didn't move, and that's why I ended up getting into this racket, is to, I guess, do what I can to help make it better.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your personal life in Corner Brook, the things you enjoy doing, getting out into the communities. There's something about the sites that we see. I know that we've had guests on talking about the walking trails and biking and so on and so forth, about the city that really attracts you to the city as a resident.
You're absolutely right. There is we do have a fantastic. We have a very green city. Very lucky to have the trails and outdoor areas that we have here, parks and recreational facilities. I used to be heavily involved in theater and music, and not so much these days. My life is a bit busy being with the mayor's role, so I don't get to do as much of that as I used to like to. But you can go out any time before, of course, when we're not in lockdown mode because of coronavirus. There's a ton of live music and theater and visual art, and culturally, I guess we're very rich, and I always did enjoy those aspects of our community. But one thing I recently discovered, like I said, I like to go outdoors, and we have a cabin, out toward Codroy, and we used to spend a lot of time out there as well, and enjoy that hunting and fishing. But one thing I recently discovered was cross-country skiing, and we have, of course, the Blow Me Down trails just within our own city boundary. It's we take that for granted sometimes. That is a phenomenal facility, and my wife and kids. My wife has skied for a few years, and my kids started to pick it up. So this year, of course, I picked it up, and I gotta say, what an enjoyable pastime. We enjoy again, to get outside. It's so peaceful, beautiful trails that go on forever, and also, I guess, the community aspect up there. A lot of good people. The atmosphere around the lodge is, again, very family friendly, but just a great vibe, and I can't say enough how much I've enjoyed the season, my first season up there, and really for the first few weeks of the outbreak when we were locked down, being able to go out for a ski with my family and stay in our bubble, of course, was really a godsend. It really gives you that opportunity to decompress when you're stressed and get some vitamin D and some exercise. I'll never take that place for granted ever again, and I'd encourage everyone to give it a shot because it is really enjoyable.
Yeah, so you mentioned skiing and hiking and so on and so forth. And you're right. We've got such a huge hub here for the arts and culture, and that's great as well. Um, what led you to when you came to Corner Brook with your wife? And were your children born by the time you got here? By the way,
No, no, no. They're more
no.
recent additions.
Okay. So what led you when you came here? You started working here. Your wife was working at the university. What led you to making that big decision to say, you know what, I think I want to be mayor? What brought you to that point?
Well, I've always had an interest in I guess how our government works, and I was involved quite heavily, like I said, in the art scene. I had a small business downtown and things like that as well. Sort of I'd call it my expensive hobby. But I do really care about the city, and I did want to see it sort of thrive, and I did have kids at this point, and I was thinking about, I guess, what kind of city would I like to see for them, and I guess how can we make our hometown thrive and survive, and so yeah, I guess that's what sort of led me to that realization. I did want to make a difference, and I thought that again I knew a lot of the players involved, and I knew how things worked for the most part, and so I said, hey, why not try it out? And I got to say, it's been a very rewarding experience. It's I'm a bit of a you can tell from my interests. I have a very sort of wide variety of interests, and I like to think of myself as a bit of a quick study, a bit of a jack of all trades, maybe master of none. But in this job, it is really handy to be able to get your head around all the issues that face a community, whether it's technical things about how our water system works, or legal issues, of course, accounting and budgeting, and how our recreational facilities work, but also social issues, and I guess how we interact and how the city government interacts with the rest of the community. It doesn't, our responsibility, I think, is broader than just the services that City Hall is technically responsible for. We're trying to be good stewards for the whole community, right?
Right. So, since being mayor, it's been close to 3 years now, I believe. What has changed for your life with, respects to being a dad, being a husband? Obviously, kids are going, my dad's mayor, beat that. Uh, but what has changed in your personal life? I guess, without getting too personal, if you don't. What?
No, you know what? A lot of people said to me, like, why would you want to do that? You must get a lot of complaints and things like that. But you know what? I don't. I get. I get complaints, and sometimes I get people who are angry, and sometimes I even get people who are abusive or and really disrespectful. But for the most part, I've found people really good to deal with. If you give people your honest attention, and respond to them, and sometimes you don't have the answer that they want to hear, but if you're forthcoming and you tell them how it is and you're empathetic, 98% of people are excellent to deal with and have a good degree of understanding. So from a personal perspective, I do put myself out there quite a bit. I don't hide away. My cell number is on the website. People can call me directly, and you know what? I have no regrets about any of that. The people have been excellent for the most part, and I'm happy to do it. So that aspect of the job, it really hasn't changed a lot for me. What has changed is I don't have as much time for my hobbies anymore, because of course, besides the normal 9 to 5, which I do spend here for the most part at City Hall, you have a lot of evening meetings and commitments and things as part of this job. So that's the big difference. I'd still like to, play and sing a little more, and maybe get on stage. But hey, you gotta manage your time, especially with kids around.
Right, right. So play and sing. Explain that a little bit. So this is something I didn't know about our mayor.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can strum a guitar, but I used to sing a nice bit with a few different bands, and every now and then at special events and carnival and things like that, I'll get roped into getting up and singing a few tunes.
Wow. So we'll have to do something with you one day and have you on the show, maybe sing a song and play a tune.
Well,
That'd be great fun.
what's amazing is that when you become mayor, people think you have no other skills, or maybe
Right.
no skills at all. So whenever you do get up and play with the band, I did that with the Come Home year last year down at Broadway. Got up and did a few tunes, and people were amazed, like, "Oh my goodness, the mayor can sing." Well, yeah, I mean, we're people too, so.
I'm curious to know, when it comes to being the mayor, what were some of the toughest decisions you had to make, and what was it like for you to make some of those decisions?
Well, you always have to remember, I guess, how your decisions affect individuals and the homeowners and as well those in your community who may not be well represented sometimes. And so, budgets are always tough. I got to say, you're trying to you got to keep your books balanced, of course. But no one wants to raise taxes or cause people to have to pay more. But that's how we pay for our services. So sometimes you have to choose. You can't sort of fund all the initiatives you want to do sometimes. But you got to think about it at a personal level and where you can do the most good. A good example is going on right now. In fact, I know that there's a lot of people right now in our community hurting. People are out of work. People, small business owners, especially, are definitely feeling the pinch right now. And so, from a city perspective, there was a number of municipalities that came out with interest-free periods and deferrals and things. But we knew that, I guess, we can't solve all of the problems in the city when it comes to the financial mess that this COVID-19 brings with it. So we really wanted to focus on small businesses. So what we did was in addition to some interest-free things, did a 2-month tax break on your business tax for businesses in the sectors that were most affected. So that's like your hospitality, your restaurants, your retail, personal services, that kind of thing. But it doesn't extend to all businesses. And that's what's hard, because I know that everyone is hurting and all businesses are feeling an effect here. And, while we'd love to be able to say, you know what, we're going to forego all taxation this year, that's not a reality for us, because we still have to keep, I guess, the water going and the roads fixed and the sewers running and all those things. So it is tough, I guess, having to, knowing that people are suffering, not being able to solve all of their problems. So you have to really pick your shots and do the best you can.
Right. And I got to say, when you had mentioned earlier about being able to be reached, I know that I can speak from my personal experience. Anytime I had to reach out to you directly, it's been very simple. And I see your active presence on social media. I see you on Facebook and on Twitter, and I see you engaging, and I see you responding, and that's great. So what led you to thinking, okay, as a resident, I'm going to become the mayor. I don't want to necessarily give up, my privacy, but at the same time, I'm willing to be open and approachable. What kind of decision was that for you to make, and how does that affecting your life, and what does your wife think about all this?
Well, it's funny. Carolyn is my partner in this, in the sense that obviously I can't do this unless she is willing, and it wouldn't. It's not. Marriage doesn't work like that, right? And she, I think, finds it harder when I get attacked personally. So if someone says something on Facebook mean, or I get a snarky call or something like that, I'm able to rationalize it a little more. Yeah, it hurts sometimes, and it hurts especially when it's people that you know, because it is a small community. But I think Carolyn finds it particularly hard sometimes, and I think that's natural. I think that she's getting better at it, dealing with that. But you know, it's a small community here. I think you really have no choice but to immerse yourself in that. And
Right.
you know, the long term, I think it's, you know, politics is a weird beast for sure. But my approach has been, you know what, you got to do the right thing. You got to be able to explain why you do the right thing. And if you can't make a case to yourself and to the people you're representing, well, then maybe you're not making the right decision. So you know, that's where you have to go. And I guess your obligation is to bring people into the tent and help them, I guess, as much as possible, understand how we do things at the city and why we do things. And I think that makes everyone become better at building the community.
Right, absolutely. Um, so, you know, there are obviously, as you mentioned, some struggles and some difficulties that have had. What have been some of the highlights of first being a resident and then being a mayor here in Corner Brook? What are some of the highlights for Jim Parsons?
Oh, there's been like I gotta say, over the last few years, there've been some amazing moments. Thinking about our hockey day in Canada was a fantastic experience. I think I got to meet some of my hockey heroes, and it was so good to see. If you remember, we had a state of emergency then as well, and with a lot of rain and flooding. And I remember
Yeah,
our city crews really stepped up at that point, and not just during the emergency, but in the follow-up to get those rinks done up by the Civic Center outside. And I was
and if
so
I'm not
proud.
mistaken, Ron McLean recognized the city for having done that too on air. That was
Yeah,
great.
it
That was a
was
very feel good, proud moment.
absolutely. I was again completely proud, and that's you know, that's the thing. Like, I guess what I've realized about City Hall is that you know, despite the criticism sometimes, the people who work here genuinely care about our community. I mean, they're residents too, and it's not a faceless, nameless machine here. It is people working, I guess, to do the best they can for the residents. And so, you know, that was one of those moments where you could see it was very obvious, and you could see it. But you know, that was a very special one. Our come home year celebrations last year, seeing I get thousands of people coming out to like Margaret Bowater Park, probably the most people I've ever seen at a Margaret Bowater Park, or gathered on West Street and Broadway during those special days and events. The vibe there, I think, you know, we were trying to kick off our tourism plan, and just seeing the energy and seeing everyone so proud of our city and acting as tour guides. I think we love to be tour guides in our own city, and
Yeah.
you know, I'll never forget those experiences last year either. That was absolutely incredible, and you know what? And that's why I guess, I mean, I think we've got a very bright future when it comes to our tourism product and things like that. We have a beautiful sort of place where we live, and we have, you know, the hiking and the hills and the ocean. All these things are a dream come true for many people in the world, and I think that we're all very eager to share them. And you know, going forward, that's a great new industry for us to explore, and one that really complements what we're trying to do to make us a family-friendly a place to live as well. So all these recreational aspects, our parks and trails, these are things, I guess, that make it nice to live here, and they make it a great place to come for a visit. So yeah, it's been
Absolutely.
I've had say many more, I guess, peaks than valleys in this job.
Excellent. And I can tell you from my experience, having been a tour guide as well, that there's a overwhelming sense of pride being a tour guide about this place, especially when you're talking to people who are visiting and you're sharing with them the city and the area, and they absolutely fall in love with it almost as equally as much as you think we do, and it's really rewarding. I do want to know, as we clue up our episode here, what is in the plans for your future? In terms of where you see yourself heading as a resident, maybe even as mayor.
It's really hard to know. Right now, I'm focused on the job, and we've been able to accomplish a lot of things that I know that I set out to do when I took it on. And there's a number of things left on my list. When it comes to, I guess, our tourism, we need to solve some problems like our pool. We have infrastructure deficits, like things like wastewater. We've got transit we got to sort out. We've got we were able to get the poll tax gone, which was a big accomplishment. There's a lot of work left to do, and I guess I really do enjoy trying to get, work with our staff and council generally. I guess enjoys getting those things done. So right now, I guess taking one day at a time, and seeing where. But I really enjoy this job, I have to say, and it's.
And I think as a city, we enjoy having you as our mayor.
What?
So I think as a city, we enjoy having you as our mayor. You've been doing a fantastic job, and I really appreciate that. As a resident, I want to thank you. I would love to spend so much more time talking about this with you, Jim. I think it's if we can fill several episodes, talking about what it's like for you and what it's like in the city and your future plans and so on. But unfortunately, that wraps up the time here for our show. So I want to thank you, Jim, for being here and talking to us a bit about you as an individual, as a resident, and a little bit as a mayor. I'm sure our viewers will enjoy that. Folks, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to our community and this episode where we are in isolation. It's a bit different, I know, but we hope you can stick around and come back for any future episodes here on Rogers TV. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.
Thank you. See ya.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
Good evening, 007.
Tell me what you know, James Bond.
You'll light the fuse on any explosive situation.
Put your attention.
007 license to kill.
Is this really what you want? Living in the shadows? Always alone?
I don't stop to think about it.